you can say things to the press that you're good with it, but I wonder if there is concern in Brooklyn right now about Kyrie. This is the second time he's just said, I got stuff to do at home.
Yeah, it is. It seems to be problematic. It definitely does. And without knowing why Kyrie is out, we know it's a family matter, but without knowing why, I don't want to speculate. But obviously, this isn't the first time, and I know people will point to the fact that the team said labeled it a personal family matter, but then it also was his birthday during the time that he was out, and so I think Brooklyn is. I think they're just in a situation where they're trying to appease all of their stars,
right,
and try to make them feel as comfortable as possible. I don't know if sets a good precedent, but at the end of the day, if they come away and win that Larry O'Brien Trophy later in the summer, I guess it was all worth it. But until then, we have to calculate after the end of the season to see what some of the just appeasing to every little whim. We'll be able to judge if it was worth it by then.
By the way, I want to circle back on the Lakers. The only way the Lowry deal makes sense to me is the Lakers know something about AD's health or maybe LeBron's, and they think they're in trouble. Like then I would get it. Like, hey, we got to get Lowry here because we may not have one of our stars for a while. It's funny. The Lakers signed AD to a long contract. AD smartly understood. Listen, man, I get hurt. I'm taking the money. I'm taking the extension. And I do look at the Lakers now, and I wonder, is there something they know about AD? Have they come to the conclusion that, listen, he's a 55-game player in a regular season, and that's what he is. That's his history.
Well, he's done a pretty good job of staying healthy since he's been a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. I just think this year, with the condensed offseason, that they wanted to make sure they were careful. And that if their body needed time to rest, they were going to give them that time, an ample amount of time. And now with this injury, with LeBron James as well, they're not going to rush those guys back because first and foremost, the priority is being healthy as possible for the playoffs. So with that being said, yeah, they know that they need to acquire talent to be able to give LeBron, as he ages, give AD the time that they need, or even time that they don't need. Just to stay fresh. And so I think that's what we're going to see. I think they got a good in on Andre Drummond. So we'll see what happens so we were 2.5 hours away from the deadline. See what happens with him. But no, they have to make moves. If you build this team around LeBron and AD, you got to make moves on the edges to make sure you got prominent guys that can come in, fill time, buy time, and still keep the team afloat, so those guys can be healthy for the playoff run.
All right, follow Chris Haynes on Twitter as well. We got a couple hours for the trading deadline. Orlando sent their all-star to the Bulls, so Chicago doubling down on Zach LaVine. They're also, there we go. Chris right there has got, this is what's happening. He's breaking stories as we speak. Jeremiah, the NFL scout, I dominated. So Joel Klatt comes in, sits on the couch, and we go through half the first round. We'll do a mock draft, which I'm very prone to do at home all the time. Very excited about this. The Clatsters rolling in as the courage to be beaten badly on television. So I do respect that. Joy Taylor is joining me. How are you, Joy?
I'm great. Feels like spring is almost here.
I know. It really does.
April's just around the corner.
I went for a walk yesterday. It was beautiful outside. Unbelievable.
Very nice.
Very nice. So Charles Barkley, who I'm a big fan of. Listen, James Harden is doing a great job in Brooklyn. But we see this all the time. We've talked about this with Lamar Jackson. Right now, he's a great regular season quarterback. Is he a great postseason quarterback? We've seen this. A-Rod was a great player, but he was never quite as good in the postseason. That's James Harden. He's a dominant regular season player. He's not as dominant in the postseason. And my belief has always been because he doesn't get the whistle in the playoffs. Referees get out of the way. And the further the playoffs go, the conference finals, the finals, it's wrestling. Refs do not want to decide it. They want the stars to decide it. The refs don't have a favorite. Their favorite's swallowing the whistle. And you just don't get the whistle. And Harden's game is built for the whistle. So was Karl Malone's. But let's listen to Charles Barkley, who made quite a statement on James Harden a couple of days ago.
He is the most awesome offensive player I've ever seen. Listen, Michael and Kobe were better players from the guard standpoint, but as far as offensively, they couldn't shoot threes like him. They were not as great as dribbling the basketball, going to the basket, getting fouled. I mean, this guy, every time he goes to the basket, he's going to hit somebody and get 2 free throws.
Except in the playoffs. If you look at James Harden's regular season numbers and his postseason numbers, his field goal percentage goes down, his free throw attempts go down, his three-point percentage goes down, his points go down. They don't plummet, but they're not the same. Whereas Michael Jordan and Kobe were often at their greatest in the playoffs. We keep falling for 3 or 4 things in sports. One of the things we always fall for is the quarterbacks in the draft from big-name schools. They don't dominate the league. Go look at the last year's 8 division winners. Not a single one was from a football power. Look at Tua. Because from big-name schools, being a quarterback is all about comfort. Receivers are wide open. You never get hit. NFL quarterback is all about discomfort. Can you just get hit constantly? We keep falling for that. The star quarterback from the big university, the Alabama quarterback, look around the league. That's not who dominates the league. It's guys from Boston College and NC State and Miami of Ohio and Cal. That's one of the things we fall for. The second thing we always fall for is the flashy point guard in the NBA that can't shoot. Derrick Rose, John Wall, Russell Westbrook. If you can't shoot and you're under 6'5" in this league, you will never dominate it. You will never be a huge factor in the playoffs. You got to be able to shoot. Now, if you're LeBron and can drive, or you're 6'9", you're a dominant wing or a big, that becomes less important. But if you're 6'4" or under and can't shoot, you become actually a playoff liability. The third thing in sports we always fall for is the 12-year, $400 million baseball contract. None have ever looked good halfway through it. The Mookie Betts deal is the first one that has a chance to not be awful because he's great, he's healthy, he signed it young enough, so by the end of it, he'll be out of his prime, but he won't be an old man. And that has a chance to be a good one. And even the last 3 years of that, and Mookie's the best player in the game or second best, you're way overpaying for him. James Harden's regular season dominance is falling into this category. If I have to hear another person tell me how great he is in the regular season, he's Karl Malone. And I covered Karl Malone. Karl Malone scored the second most points in league history. That's insane, right? In the history of the planet. Karl Malone scored the second most points. More than Michael, more than LeBron, more than Kobe, more than Hakeem, more than Shaq, more than everybody except Kareem. No rings, 2 final trips. Well, Karl Malone depended on the whistle. Look at the top 5 scorers of all time. Kareem's got 6 titles. LeBron's got 4. Kobe's got 5 and MJ 6. Karl 0. Why? Don't tell me he didn't have help. John Stockton's a top 5 point guard ever. Jerry Sloan was a top 2 or 3 coach in the league. Mark Eaton led the NBA during that time with Karl Malone, blocking shots 4 times, 5 times first or second team all defense. So he had first or second best rim protector, first or second best point guard, top 3 coach, and they always had, and by the way, one of the great home court advantages, they got no rings, got 2 trips. Wasn't like the West had dominant teams every year because Karl Malone depended on the whistle. I covered some of those series, Utah, Portland. It's not that he didn't ever get the whistle, but you don't get it in those big deciding games. James Harden, similarly, has 23 times in his career scored over 50 points. Never in the playoffs. Because to score 50 points, you got to get to the free throw line a lot, and you do not in the playoffs. That is the difference. Kobe didn't depend on the whistle. Larry Bird didn't depend on the whistle. Michael Jordan didn't depend on the whistle. Magic didn't depend on the whistle. They would get the whistle, but they didn't need it to definitively cement their game, and Harden does. It's not to say this team can't get to the finals, but that ball-centric style, how many years are we going to see it? It rolls in the regular season. It dries up in the postseason. As many of you know, it's unfortunate. It's very hurtful, but Cleveland doesn't like me. I have been more right on the Cleveland Browns than any team in the last 3 years, Joy, as my witness. I told you John Dorsey would not work as a GM. Right. I told you Freddie Kitchens' disaster. Right. I told you Kevin Stefanski finally was a